Hey church, and welcome to our second week of Balance in small groups. And I want to start out with a question. What did you learn this last week as you tracked your spending with the Spending Tracker app? Now I know what's happening. Probably most of us in here going, oh man, I didn't download it. I didn't do it. Well, while other people are talking about how they didn't fail, I want you to go ahead and download that app and start keeping track of what you're spending. It's going to show you a lot about where you are with your finances. And up to this point in your life, what has been your goal regarding money? You know, for some people, their goal is to save, and they save a lot. Other people's goal is to spend. You know, it's like, I don't want to have a bunch of money in the bank and I don't enjoy it. I want to be able to enjoy my money. Other people, their goal is to take care of their family, to provide for the future, to give money away. What is it that has been your goal regarding money up until this point in your life? Now I want you to read 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 9 through 19. And here are the questions I want you to read this scripture and looking for these questions as you're reading it. According to David's prayer, what belongs to God? And also, according to David's prayer, what comes from God? So hopefully you came to the conclusion that what belongs to God is the greatness, the power, the glory, the majesty, the splendor, everything on heaven and in earth comes from Him. It belongs to Him. But what comes from God is surprising. Wealth, honor, strength, and power. And you know what's interesting about those four things? Wealth, honor, strength, and power are all things that we think we earn ourselves. We think, if you're wealthy, you gained your wealth by working hard. If you have honor, you deserve honor because you've worked hard at it. Strength, power, whatever it is. But what's interesting is that David says all four of those things comes from God. How were David and the people honoring God in these passages with their finances? And what does it mean to honor God with your finances on a day-to-day basis in today's culture? So in these passages, David and the people were honoring God by building Him a temple. But in our society today, God hasn't called us to build some large temple to Him. And so the question is how are we supposed to honor God in our day-to-day finances? Well, one way that Michelle and I have tried to honor God in our finances is by being generous. I mean, we've been generous in giving to the church. We've always given to the church, even before I was a pastor. But in addition to that, we've also tried to feed homeless people when we can. In fact, one of the things that we've done before is we've invited a homeless man to dinner with us in a restaurant, and we paid for his meal, and we ate with him. There was another time, there was a youth pastor who was struggling with his finances, and we loved him, and so we would actually buy Publix gift cards, and we would sneak it into his office and put it on his desk when he wasn't paying attention. And anonymously, we never told him it was from us. But honoring God has so much more to do with how you manage your money. It's not just about being generous. It's about not wasteful spending. It's about not hoarding money either. So it's not about spending a lot, but you also don't want to hoard money and not be generous with it. Honoring God with our wealth is about being responsible with our future. Not spending money until we've got no margin in case there's a tragedy in our lives. And it also means not allowing things to become more important than people. Next, I want you to read 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 14 through 16. Why did David not expect God to thank him for the large donation to the temple? You know, most of us, if we had given millions, possibly even billions of dollars to God, we would expect God to give us a thank you. But why was it that David did not expect a thank you from God? And how does this truth transform the way that we think about money? What we discover in these verses is that David knew that it had all come from God. That all the money that he had given had first come from God to him. It helps us to put money into perspective. You know, we can't have an unhealthy relationship to money when we realize that it doesn't belong to us. We become thankful for what God has given us instead of jealous of what everybody else has. We just go, man, God, thank you for what you've given me. And we realize that the money we have is for a greater purpose than just for ourselves. Does the fact that everything comes from God negate our hard work? Why or why not? And what is the difference between stewardship and ownership? You know, the fact that everything comes from God does not negate our hard work. No, your hard work is valuable. You know, if you look in Scripture, Jesus talks about good stewards. Good stewards are the ones who work hard to multiply God's money. Stewardship is managing someone else's wealth. And the difference between stewardship and ownership is saying, hey, this is mine, but stewardship is saying, this doesn't belong to me, so I'm going to treat this with the utmost respect. Next couple questions. Why is it hard to see yourself as a steward rather than an owner of your money? And how would it change your financial decisions to see yourself as a steward of God's gifts and resources that He's given to you? I have a hard time seeing myself as a steward because I value that image of being a self-made man. You know, I've worked very hard for what I have, and so therefore I deserve this. But you know, when I let go of that, I allow God to be who He is, and it humbles Todd Peterson. Next, I want you to read 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 17 and 18. When David admitted that everything belonged to God, was this a truth that enslaved or liberated him and his people? And why? Second question, how have people used their money and stuff to make an eternal impact on your life? I mean, think back. Has anybody ever used something that they owned to have this huge impact on your life? And how can you use the money and stuff that God has given you as tools to make an eternal impact on others? And as you consider all of these things, when you're done answering those as a small group, close in prayer and just say, you know what, God, help me to honor you with everything. Thank you guys very much, and have a great rest of your small group.